Look, the news yesterday confirmed by Brian Kelly, not ideal for LSU heading in to Saturday night's game versus Alabama. This is a game that we've talked about with Jalen Milroe, the quarterback, that if you're going to put the ball in a quarterback's hand here and say, go ahead and beat LSU, this would be the guy that you would have to say prove it to. So while the timing is, the story is not ideal, and being without some of your all of your transfer cornerbacks in the offseason is just not good, and there's no way to spin it. But the timing of it from the schedule standpoint, you could argue it's not the worst case scenario, right? I mean, if this was happening earlier in the season against Ole Miss, and I know you lost the game, or against some of the teams that you played early on, this would be a bigger storyline than I believe it is. Like we said last week, these stories create moments. These stories create opportunities. These stories create situations where players are going to have a chance and step in, and for a first time, for an early portion, for an early start to a career, these are sometimes the games, the situations, and the instances that you can always point back to. In contrast, it could also be something that breaks players, right? Where the stage is too big, and you find out, because the lights will be bright on Saturday night. And this is arguably the biggest game in college football. I know that there are rivals all over the place that would argue that. Ohio State, Michigan, Auburn, Alabama. There's rivals all over college football, Florida State, Miami, that would argue that that's the biggest game in college football. As far as the NFL is concerned, I believe this is the biggest game year in, year out, which is kind of like saying, what's Vegas say about the game, right? Like, we can argue who the biggest rivals are and what's the biggest game, but when you look and you really want clarification on something in sports, you usually say, what's Vegas say about it? What are the odds? The measuring stick in college football as far as big games go, I would say, where are the most NFL scouts going? Who serves the most NFL credentials as far as games go? And year in, year out, this is the one that gets the most interest. Why? Because there's more pros on the field than just about any other game in the sport. So while you ideally would love to have Chestnut, Harris, Zy Alexander, and J.K. Johnson, for that matter, live for this game come Saturday night, it creates an opportunity for a young player like an Ashton Stamps, like a Jeremiah Hughes, like a LaTerrence Welsh, to step in and see if you're made for this stage. See if you're ready to play in this type of atmosphere. See if you're ready to get on this field. And that's what has been created. That's sports, right? I mean, that's how it works. And so, Brian Kelly yesterday saying that the availability of the cornerbacks, Alexander, Chestnut, Harris, that they're not available, that's the takeaway. But inside the locker room, it has to be an opportunity for somebody to step up. It has to be an opportunity for somebody to understand now is your moment, right? I mean, early in the season when we were asking for the young players to get them out there and play them, it was for situations like this. Because when you looked in the room, and you looked at the cornerback room, you had to, man, you're really thin to start off with. So you already have lost J.K. Johnson in the preseason. You're a snap away from being down to a couple of first-year guys. So taking the time early in the season to get them out there, get them repped, get some development, that was with the mindset of, come November, you're probably going to have them. Just because of that's what happens in the SEC. That's what happens in the schedule. You play it, and by November, your team looks a lot different than it did in September. So, another non-ideal spot for, some of these guys to be making really their first appearances in college football. I know some of them have a lot of reps, but you're talking third and fourth quarter reps against blowout teams, in blowout games. When you're a starter in a game like this, you probably won't even feel your feet hitting the ground for the first quarter and a half. You're walking on clouds out there. So, it's a huge story, but I think when you look across the line of scrimmage and you see Jalen Milroe, I think Matt House, Brian Kelly, and the crew were probably saying, all right, look, man, if this guy beats us, you go shake his hand at midfield after the game and say, job well done. But until that happens, I say put the ball in his hand and see what happens, no matter how bad your defense is. And LSU has been putrid at times on that side of the ball throughout the year. But with the Alabama offensive line struggles, even a story like Makai Wingo yesterday being knocked out, that's a huge story. Missing the rest of the regular season, that's an enormous story. But in the timing of the schedule, I could think of worse things, right? I think it's manageable. You have the ability to overcome it, especially with the play of a guy like Jordan Jefferson of late. Mason Smith coming on, really looking that he's rounding into form here for the last month of the season. And while, ideally you'd love to have Wingo there, he's just not even an option. So I think that, yesterday's press conference, while I think you can take some somber away from it, you can, have a mindset of, man, I would spin it the other way and say this creates great opportunity on an enormous stage of football for a lot of football players. At the end of it, it's big. It's a big game. There's a lot of people there. The sidelines are packed. It's a huge environment and atmosphere. But when it's kicked off, all it is football. All it is a game. Same thing these guys been playing since they were 7, 8, 9 years old. Once the game gets going, it's just a football game. And, for some of these young guys, early on in camp, back in spring, I definitely thought that they would get more chances than they have, but here they go. Biggest stage, Ashton Stamps, you ready? Jeremiah Hughes, you ready? LaTerrence Welsh, you ready?
Javion
Taviano, you ready? First-year guys, unexperienced guys, but this is the biggest football game you've ever played in your life. I'd imagine that this is going to create a great opportunity for them. So we'll hear from Brian Kelly. Let's get into it and hear what Kelly had to say. Here he is announcing the availability of his defensive backfield. Stu, are you ready for this? You good on this? This is 5 of Kelly speaking yesterday at his Monday presser.
Rehab of injury.
Deuce is not available. Denver's not available. Zai is not available. Ashton Stamps will practice today. Yeah, obviously.
Pretty simple, right? All 3 of those guys. Alexander's hurt. Chestnut.
Unavailable.
Status of him, I think it's speculated he's not with the team anymore. And Denver Harris continues to have setbacks. And while the setbacks, are not huge, they're not with the program. And, I think that it's very unfortunate that it has worked out like this because both Denver Harris and LSU football need each other. And it's just not worked out here in year one. So here is Kelly talking more about his cornerback room. This is 7, Stewie. Here is Kelly talking about the cornerback room heading into Saturday.
Well, they've been around long enough now. I think you're into the season now, 8 games. They had some time here in camp and some, we had some mid-year enrollment. So, to say that they're inexperienced, yes, they haven't played a lot of SEC games, but they know what they're doing. They understand our techniques. They know what's expected of them. So, we're in a position where we feel comfortable and confident that they can go out and get the job done. Even though they don't have a lot of SEC games underneath their belt, they're quite capable of going out there and playing at a high level. So I'd say more than anything else, you have to have confidence in your players and their ability to do it. And I've got confidence that, whether it's Jeremiah Hughes or Javen Toviano, Ashton Stamps, all three of those freshmen can go out and play at the level necessary for us to win a championship.
So, look, it's a dire situation in the defensive backfield. There's nowhere to spend it. I mean, if you're inside that coaching room and you're looking at that room, if you're looking at that board, you're thinking out loud, like, this is a enormous issue going into Saturday. Just not only that you're playing young guys, the limited depth that you have. If one of these guys goes down, you are in some sincere, genuine trouble. Like, you're talking about playing guys out of real position, like really out of position. And, I think that's the situation when you head. And that's why I think, when you look at some of these guys that are not available, that's more of the issue really of them not being there. Just the necessity that they have to have them to be there is an alarming part. Stewie, this is two of Kelly talking about how they used last week.
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything. I think we talked about it last week. I think it was important for us to do some self-scouting, some things that we needed to work on. I think it was important that, from a technical standpoint, we continue to grow technically in some areas, on both sides of the ball. And then, you still want to meet a workload, criteria, because, you just can't continue to go through the season, then all of a sudden, put up a stop. So we got to about 70% of our average workload last week, and gave the guys some active rest over the weekend, and then they reported last night, and we're back to work today.
Kelly talking about how they handled the bye week last week away. Want to welcome aboard a new sponsor here to the Jordy Culotta Show. Pierce Bespoke is a mobile tailor service headquartered here in Baton Rouge. They host trunk shows across the country with law firms, casinos, university, high-end hotels, whiskey lounges, cigar bars, and more. They outfit everyone from athletes to politicians to LSU Tiger football players to students to everyone. I got a custom-made tailor suit from Pierce Bespoke last week. It came in last week. I went through the process with Grayson Augustus and his team, and it was easy. Suit came in last week here for fall, and it was, it's fine. They take measurements from the neck down, offer thousands of fabrics to choose from, allow you to build your own sport coat, your suit, your shirt, more. The delivery time is about 3 weeks, one of the fastest in the nation. Each Pierce Bespoke piece becomes a perfect fit guarantee. White glove service. Grayson Augustus and his team take care of everything. You can check out piercebespoke.com on their Instagram to book your fitting today. Tell them you heard it here on the show. But it is a great way if you're on the move, if you need a suit, if you need some clothes to kind of get through a boardroom or get through some meetings, check out Pierce Bespoke, because it is awesome. My man Grayson Augustus and his crew have taken care of me, and it was easy, real easy. So check them out at piercebespoke.com. All right, so more from Kelly, as Kelly yesterday speaking with the media about this matchup. Obviously, he's got a big injury up front on the defensive line. This is 11, Stewie, of Makai Wingo being announced out of action this week and for the remainder of the regular season.
Yes, Makai had surgery. He is out for the season.
Out for the season.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I would say this: the projections are 6 weeks, so we'll see where that goes.
Right, okay, and so on the D-line, who you're looking to fill that void, and how does his absence on the D-line sort of affect that group?
Next man up, we'll rely on the rotation that you saw pretty much against Army. It'll be a similar rotation.
So obviously that's big news, right? Heading into this week, Makai Wingo's been playing banged up. He's been playing hurt over the last couple of weeks, and that's that tough spot of kind of the 2023 edition of college football, where players can make these choices in the middle of the season when looking ahead to the next level. What's the best for the individual? We can argue this all day, right? I mean, we can go back and forth on this all day on what benefits the team and what benefits the individual. And I think there's never going to be a satisfied answer for anyone. But Makai Wingo chose to have surgery and get himself ready for the time of the season where he'll be getting ready for the NFL, and who can really fault him for that? It doesn't make a lot of sense to us, doesn't make a lot of sense to people that are following the team, but that's what those decisions are, and those are the hard parts of it, right? And Makai Wingo has a tough choice to make, and you have to respect him for making that choice, whether you like it or you don't like it. I get it, I understand it. And this is a terrible week for this to happen, just like Terrace Marshall decided to step away and put his name into the NFL draft the week of the Alabama game, his junior year. How do we feel about Terrace Marshall? I love Terrace Marshall, right? I don't hold him in bad standing because he made that decision for his future. He's given a lot to LSU. And it does not make a lot of sense to people that are team first and team oriented, and I understand that. But this is kind of the way that sports, especially at the collegiate level, has changed over the last couple of years. And that's just the hard facts of it. And I know that Makai Wingo says that he could potentially be back for a playoff run, and I know Brian Kelly says that it's a potential 6-week injury, but I would be shocked if we saw Makai Wingo play at LSU again. And that is not saying anything against Wingo. He has been an incredible player for LSU. Have gotten more out of Wingo's really what looked like his stature than you ever thought you were. Right? He has been an incredible player after transferring over. And, this injury is just kind of, it comes down to those hard decisions of college football. And I don't fault him for it. I don't look back. I don't look at him in any way. I understand that's just kind of that's the way it goes. That's the business of the game right now.
And if there was ever an opportunity where he could further injure himself, it would be this game, right? Because of the physicality of it.
I just think if you look at the last month of the season.
Yeah,
he was about to get real physical.
Right, and you could kind of see the performance kind of tapering off. He gave you everything he had as long as he was in an LSU uniform, and then you saw the injury kind of start to wear on him a little bit. You saw the snap count go down a little bit, and it became such a factor that he's like, if I'm not 100% or if I'm not even close to 100%, what's the point of me trying to even gut this thing out if I'm not even helping the team?
Stewie, this is Kelly 9. Kelly talking about the defense's challenge this week against Jalen Milroe, the quarterback for Bama.
I think at first, there was this sense that he was just going to run all over the place, right? This is going to be a running quarterback, but he's not. He'll run and he can go from 0 to 60 as well as anybody. And he is a threat to run. There's no doubt about that. But he's going to stand in the pocket. He's going to throw the football. And the way they create offense is through a balance of running the football, formationing you so you can get some shots down the field. And he throws the ball well. He throws the ball well. And and he can hit the open targets. He can push the ball down the field. And so I think what he's done really well is when he's been given the opportunity to take shots down the field, he's hooked up. He hasn't missed receivers. When they've created the opportunities, he's come through for him, and I think that's been impressive.
Will be it's going to be pivotal for LSU to put pressure on him. And I really believe that this is kind of a Harold Perkins game. It kind of feels like this is a Harold Perkins game. You know, I mean, I think with the addition of a guy like Omar Spates and the addition of a guy like Whit Weeks, that, you know, Perkins doesn't necessarily have to play the role that he did last year in this one, where he was like the real spy against Bryce Young. Where, you know, I mean, he really had to kind of keep him in the pocket, spy him, and he played that role incredibly, right? I mean, these are some of the best highlights of Perkins' freshman year came out of this game. But I think now with the addition of the cornerback of the linebackers in the offseason, the transfer from Oregon State and Spates and the true freshman in Weeks, that you've got enough firepower at that level to play that position well for 4 quarters and then allow Harold Perkins to do what he does best. I mean, if this is the game ever, to just allow him to get back out there and just play raw again and just going and getting the ball, just get after it, attack. These offensive linemen, these guys are struggling. They're giving up 4 sacks a game. Isolate Perkins on some of, I mean, that Cade Proctor left tackle, true freshman, has been through it. I mean, he is going to have some sincere freshman nightmares throughout his career just because of some of the things that have gone on with him. I mean, he has gone through the ringer of the SEC as a true freshman. And, oh, by the way, here comes the best pass rusher possibly in the league. And, you know, I think the ability to put Perkins on an island with a guy like Proctor, you know, and be kind of, you know, exotic how you get him there, where you can hide it pre-snap and, you know, get him away from like chips where it's like real one-on-one with him. I mean, this is a game that Harold Perkins could wreck, really, with the inabilities of Alabama's offensive line, the struggles that they have, and Perkins just knack for the football. And Milroe wants to run. Like, he wants, as soon as it breaks down in the first or second read, Jaden Daniels went through this. If you remember, Jaden Daniels through the first 12 games, 10 games of his career, if he would get to a second progression and it was covered, he was gone. He was taken off. And really, you could see he felt more comfortable doing that. And looking back on it, Daniels is I mean, like that was, he was more comfortable looking back on it because he wanted to protect the ball. Right? I mean,
yeah, that gave them the best opportunity to win.
Well, that ain't, I mean, he had such a premium on not turning the ball over. He felt if I was running it, like,
I can keep it right here.
Right, like I got no threat of giving it away.
What's the old adage? If you throw the ball, only 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad.
Right.
But you talk about Perkins, I think because of the deficiencies in the defensive backroom, you're not going to be able to unleash him the way that you'd probably want to against the offensive line. You're going to have to play him in coverage where he's been stellar. You might see a couple of times where you bring Perk off the edge as a blitzer, but he's going to have to play in coverage. They're just so deficient on the defensive back, like, not because of talent, because of lack of bodies.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to play in coverage the majority of the time where he's thrived. He's been one of your best cover guys inside. So I'd imagine you won't get that same Bryce Young feeling where he was like stalking, lurking, coming, and being able to.
He can do that this year.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to have him outside. And so you won't get that. Maybe you'll see a couple one-on-one opportunities where you bring Perk off the edge, but I think you'll see him the majority in coverage because you have to.
Yeah, I mean, I sense, I understand what you're saying, but I think that they want to get to Milroe quick.
See, I wouldn't even want to put pressure on Milroe. I just want to keep him in the pocket. Because where he beats you is when he's able to get past that first level, extend a play, and then hit you over the top. If you force him to be a passer in the pocket, that's where he struggles because he can't hit that deep over the middle. He doesn't have that 10 to 15-yard accuracy.
I like attacking the vulnerability of Alabama's offensive line early on and putting that into your head, right? Like, I mean, I understand of Milroe's inability to throw the ball, but moreover, the offensive line struggles is very exposable. You know, like, I mean, that's one part of the weakness that I believe you can really get after early on, and you can do it with some players, you know, a guy like Perkins coming off the edge that, you know, I mean, is they haven't seen him. They have not seen that type of speed. They haven't seen the type of scheme you can run at this offensive line that is very, very weak, you know, and has shown that, I mean, they've given up 4 sacks over the last 5 games. I mean, it is one that you can get some money on. I mean, like, you can go make some money in this game come Saturday night if you're an LSU defensive lineman. You know, I mean, a guy like Mason Smith, right? Like who has, you know, people have been wondering where he's been, have been wondering if he's up to speed, wondering if he's back into form. This is a game on Saturday night where you could really make some money off of it.
Is this Mason Smith's first time playing Alabama?
No,
Freshman
he played
year.
as a freshman.
Did he play as a freshman, or was he hurt?
I thought he had.
Because
I don't remember him being hurt as freshman.
I thought he
year.
got hurt against Kentucky, and that was before Alabama. I thought Kentucky was like in October of 2021.
I don't know. I just know he played.
No,
I just know he
I don't
came
know.
on late in the season where he got the last
Kayshawn didn't play against
Alabama.
And him and Mason Smith got hurt in that same game.
I don't remember.
But if it is, one thing that we haven't talked about, we talked about all of kind of the doom and gloom that came out of the bye week with the injury reports that we heard from yesterday. But that's another week for Mason Smith to get healthy.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to, you've seen him kind of get back into form a little bit, where you added Pete Jenkins, you see the defensive line get better, you see Mason Smith start to play more snaps and get better. Now with no Makai Wingo, you don't have a choice, but another week for that big body to heal up, rest up, and I don't know how many snaps he played against Army, so it could be a scenario where he got kind of 2 weeks off going to the Bama game fresh, especially if he's never played in it. I mean, he's going to be on 10. And you have guys like Jordan Jefferson coming in. I think the defensive line will be fine. You just lose a little bit of depth.
Yeah.
And that's the part that scares you on didn't play?
Mason Smith has never played Alabama.
Really?
Yes.
There you go.
DNP.
Huge money game for Smith. Thanks for tuning in to our premium LSU content right here on YouTube. If you want more of it, subscribe below.